listeners, Harika here, and I'm super excited to welcome you to Upptalk. If you're ready to learn and get your hands work wonders in the world of information technology, then you're in the right place. When I say Upptalk, we are not just another edtech company. Consider we are your learning partner committed to unlocking your full potential. Whether you're stepping into the world of technology for the first time or looking to advance your career, we provide top-tier, hands-on courses to build up your career. Let's take our first step towards learning here and explore it.
This is the one that I was talking about. Just search for Workday SOAP API documentation. You get the first hit, Workday Web Services Directory. And then this will show what is the current version that is running. This is a version 4.12. And then these are all the web services that are available. And the operations. For example, you want to find our age, our related web services. These are all the operations that are available under the services. I hope you'll go out and do it. Now, if you are experienced, you know where your web service is residing. If you are not experienced, then the only option that we have is you have been given a particular task to do it, to update the data in Workday. But you don't know which web service to use. Whether it's for extracting data from Workday or updating data inside Workday, you need a web service report. But updating Workday, obviously you need only web service. When you don't know which web service to use, then you have to come here and then read the description first. What is that area I'm looking for? Which of my requirements comes from which area? Is it the talent? Am I going to update skills? Or is it about position? Then you have to go for staffing. Or is it something on the HR side? Or is it something related to financial management? You have to create a general ledger or a supplier request. Then it is going to be part of financial management. Are you looking for a payroll related performance management? When you are not sure how to go and search the web service that you wanted, you have to come here and then read the description what it is about. Over the period, with your experience, you know exactly under which service your web service falls. Now my requirement is, for example, I want to create a position. This is where I have a create position. I have it. I know that the create position comes as part of staffing. I'm just coming inside staffing and then I'm searching for create position. Now for create position, I have probably 1, 4, 6, 7. We have close position, create position, edit position restrictions. These are all the position related web service. There are get positions. You have it. And then you have import create position. I was talking about your question here. Model. Go. Over here it display. I see that now. You are asked to create position. And your need is going to be like I'm going to create 10 positions. Then you can go for a normal create position. But you are going to create thousands and thousands of positions. Then this is the high volume web service. Takes the create position restriction. Then in that case you have to go for an import create position. What does it do? Here the question is create position and import create position. If I want to load book data, I should use, as I understand, input create position. Is there a difference in my studio design whenever I call a web service called create position, not input create position? I will be sending one by one data. In that case, say for some 10 positions are coming from a file. In that case, I need to design it accordingly, one by one, teaching by splitting the data from the file and using splitter. And what is the design perspective? What is the change if I use import create position? When you go for import create position, it is not going to be an individual splitter or aggregator. You are going to have an XML, and then you are going to convert that into a web service. You have 100 or 1,000 create positions, then you are going to put like batch request is going to be you put all in one web service and then you push the data into Workday. Then Workday will process this data in the background. Here the import generally works in the background. You run the integration and it will run in the background. Import create position. Whereas the create position in our web service, classes, maybe sessions. Can we create this too and see how the things are happening? It's like, what is the difference between these two? Just trying to understand, because based on that I need to design my integration. It should be a bulk processing. And that way I need to import the data. Say, for create a file with 10 positions, import it into bulk and create, only create position and by one, fitting data, and we should see that. Because if you don't understand the difference, then how should we use those web services in our design? Probably second this, topics will come when you go for an inbound design. We'll just go for it and do that. It'll be covered as I'm saying. We'll have one with the create position, one integration or one sample that they put create position. How we are going to do. If you know exactly what is that you're looking for. But again, now I'm just going back to the topic. You want to create position. The first and create position. You have to know what are the web services that are available as part of your create position. You have to understand create position as a single web service. And the single web service is not editing the existing one naturally. Correct? You want updated and then you can't use the create position. You have to go for edit position. Sometimes as per the design itself. Workday will design in such a way that a web service will have both operation add as well as update and then delete also. All three will be designed in one web service. Otherwise, Workday will provide individual web service per operation. Here a typical example here, the moment position is created, you can't delete it because you have used it. Correct in Workday. If you have used any object, then you can't delete it. You can inactivate it or you can just mark it as closed. The status will get changed. And then if a particular object is not used at all and it is not at all relevant anywhere and Workday provides an option, you can go and delete it unless and until that history is not required. You can delete the ones that are not effective, dated. Effective dated, you can only inactivate them. Delete position or any in case of anything, deletion, then you are saying through web service, there is no option to do that. If Workday provides that option, now you created a position, for example, and that position you linked to some employee, and then the employee or he just moved out. Then what do you want to do with that position? Are you going to delete the position or you're going to close the position? If you delete the position, then you will be losing the history of who that employee attached to the position. There is no track, correct? Whereas when you close the position, which means that position is not available for anyone, but it is still available for your tracking purpose or history purpose. The objects that are used, and if it is effective dated mostly or Workday, will not give the delete option. You can create a supervisory org. It's effective dated. You cannot delete it. You cannot delete it. You won't find a delete supervisory org in this. The same applies for all the effective dated objects. If it is effective dated, you can inactivate. You can't delete. If it is a task based, there are some tasks that you're just creating a country, for example. I'm saying it is not a business process related. It is just a country data. You're just creating it. Just giving an example. And that is a task based, which means there is no effective dated. It is a non-effective dated data that you're entering. You can delete the data if that country is not used by any of the other objects. You create a country and you tag that country to an employee. Then you can delete the country because there is another object linked to it. Now you delete it or that employee is not tagged to that country. He moved to another country, for example. Then that one country is not having any relation with other business objects. Then your country can be deleted. Makes sense. See the difference. Oh, I'm talking in it. Same way, you have to check what is your requirement. You're asked to edit a position, or you're asked to create a position, or all three you're asked to do. Then, based on your requirement, in one studio assembly you will be using create, edit, and close. There are cases where one web service will take care of all. All delete, update, create all. Find out which web service you're looking for or what is the operation that you want to do. You want to edit a position, but if you have used to create position, obviously you can't use that at all. It's not going to allow you to edit the field position. Read your requirement and then read your description on the web service that it is going to do, and then decide your web service accordingly. Mostly the web services will have. In general, it is designed in such a way that get web service or put web service. And now nowadays there is one model that we have, import web service, that has come in the last 3-4 years if I'm not wrong. Mostly the integrations will have these names in the start. All starts with put it is going to. You are going to update the data into Workday. Import. Also, you're going to update the data into Workday, but in a bulk, in a high volume. And get is nothing, but you're getting. You're extracting the data from Workday and then sending to some of the downstream systems. On top of that, you will see special ones which are called edits. And then create a couple of create. These are all old designs probably. But now the numbers are comparatively less. Get and putta and import are the majority ones. How the integration, the SOAP APIs are designed. This is about how a PI is designed. Now you go inside a create position. And inside create position, you have web service request response elements. You can click on this web service. From here, create positioning. This is your RTL. This is your WSTL, how it is designed. Sorry, this is here. It's stuck. Oh, sorry. That is too big. And this is your XT and this is your USTL. And the size is bigger. It is not opening. And if I open here, it is not going to see this clearly. This is your WSTL and the other one is your XT. Or just have an idea. This is overall web service development part. Now how it is defined, what are all the parameters that it will take? All those details will be available as part of your WSTL file and then the XSD, the schema file. Now your request, how my create position request is going to look like. This is where our interest is. I'm going to send a request to Workday. And then by filling all the details that I've required for a web service, that I'm going to use this request. A request create position request. I'm just opening the SOAP app API. And here you can come and find out which tags are mandatory, which tags are optional. The optional tags are, obviously it is optional. It's required. You can fill it, otherwise you can leave it. The mandatory ones are based on your requirement. You will design your web service or you will clean up your web service. Which tag that I wanted. I'll just push it accordingly. Now there's a request. Now the response. When I send this request, what is the data that I'll be getting? This is how my structure is going to be inside. Here I'll be getting all the data that I wanted. I will see in detail. When you go for a request here, the business process parameters, how my web service request should be filled. When you open this here, it says create position request and then next followed by business process parameters. Now, if you come here you see business process parameters and before that there is a version that we have. And where is the version here? This is the version string. How this version has to be filled. That's the data that is given here. It should be string, it should be web service version. And then next one is what? Next one is business process parameters. In business process parameters, this is my section. It starts from here and then all the way goes until business process parameters. This is a business process parameter. Since all these are business process parameters, what is the data that I should be passing as part of this business process parameters and how that data type should look like? That is what is defined here. Go to business process parameters and it says auto complete should be Boolean. Where is the auto complete here? This is the one. Auto complete should be Boolean, which means this tag will allow only true or false. That is what it is saying here. And run. Now it is going to be Boolean. When you use this tag and make sure you are using only Boolean. Instead of Boolean, if you give run now, yes, autocomplete. No, it is not going to work. When you design your web service, you have to make sure what is the type of the value that I can pass inside the web service. And then comment data, then business process attachment data. The moment you see comment data, it has a business process comment data, which means it is a subtag that is having This is on a one business process parameter section. You have all these parameters. And in that there is a comment data. Comment data has another section or subsection. That subsection has comment data. If you look at here, this comment data is coming inside a tag. That's why you will see another box here or subsection here. What is that you can enter here? Here you can enter string, prior form of comment regarding the business process. And here it has given the validation also. Business process has been configured to disable comment. Please remove the comment or change the settings in the business process policy tenant setup. Now you want to set up or you want to enter a comment when you create a position. Like for example, you are getting the create position data from some third party system and you want to put their external ID as part of your comment. And how do you put that in the comment? In the comment section, you can go and pass. I'm getting the data from my SAP success factors, for example. In success factors, the position ID is 1234. I want to enter that comment as part of here. You can pass that as a string because it is going to accept here. This is a string, comment string. It is going to accept here, but it will accept. But when you try to post the data, it may throw error. Or it will throw error if your business process is disabled for comment. You have to make sure to use this tag. You have to enable your comment in a business process. Is it? Can you talk about cardinality, please? What is Zoo1? This cardinality. I need to check whether it's a multi-instance or I have it. Give me a second. Is it something? 01 means 0. 0 means you can leave it blank or delete this particular stuff. 0 means not mandatory. And the 01 means like you have to have something with some value or some parameter should be mandatory as a part of that service. That's whether it's a mandatory or not. That's where this is coming in. Do one thing and I'll just make a note. I'll explain a little more clearly. Generally, cardinality falls in that area. Cardinality is nothing but the number of elements that you can group or send it. Correct? That's where the cardinality comes into picture. Whether it's a single object or multi-object, whether it's optional or is it a required, all those stuff. 0 and 1. Either you can provide data or you don't need to provide data here. Whereas if you are going to use business process attachment tag, it is 1 which means file name is must. It's a mandatory. The moment you see 01, it's optional or you can fill the data, or the moment you see 11, it is mandatory. You can see all this cardinality, probably in case if you want more information, I can get it. Generally, whether it's a mandatory or non-mandatory, or can I send multiple data, that's where this comes into picture. Or you can see. Cardinality version. Good, I'll cover it tomorrow. I'll get some more text for you, proper ones. Tomorrow class is not there. We'll be in touch on 18th. Sorry, weekends. Whenever we connect. Next class, whenever we connect, we'll just go through it. Cardinality, but on a very high level. Whether it's a mandatory or optional field, that's where it will come into picture. We have a document, but I have to just open it up. We won't waste the time here. I'll get the document readily available for our next class. Just going back. You've got a comment data, and then you have the data that you are going to fill in, and then you have a worker object. And in the worker object, what type of data that you are going to fill in? Are you going to pass it? And in case, if you are going to pass a worker object to create a position, for example, then what type of data that it is accepting? You have a tag worker. And that worker will have at the rate of type. Where do you see worker? This is your worker reference. You can provide a worker reference over here. Here you have a BSA ID and then specific type string. Here you can send a workers with ID. I hope you have an idea what is with ID. A unique ID that is created for. Just a few observations over here. If you see in your XML, can you open that ML? Cardinal. You just notice the cardinality is 1. But here it is mentioned as optional. Is it really mandatory for sending, creating a position, need to provide a worker ID? Is it mandatory? No, it is not mandatory, but it is not a 0-1, correct? It is a 1-1. We assumed like 1. 1 means you have to provide a data. Minimum 1 data should be provided, but there it is mentioned as optional. I don't think in create position we need an employee ID or worker ID. You don't need an employee ID. You can give a reference. Now we need to look at it. I just on the fly. I have picked up the data. Create position. You want a worker reference. What is that? Let me do one thing. Let me do that. I'll fetch the document for you. Cardinality, then I'll just go. Instead of just giving that info on the fly. If you are giving create position you don't require, but in which cases you are going to use this? Whether this worker reference you want to provide. Probably I need to check this whether this worker reference you want to give a worker reference and create position or you want to link. You're creating a position and then link that to a particular employee or you fetch the existing, generally the worker reference. We give it for a reference. You go and fetch the data based on this reference. Since it is create position, mostly that shouldn't be the case, but we need to check. What is the use of this worker reference? As I said, because anytime in any supervisory organization, if you create a position, how can you give the worker ID over there until and unless you create that position? First, we create the position in our organization, then assign a worker in that position. What is the meaning of this? Like why it's a vendor one field or why here it is mentioned as optional, not getting it. Worker, it is necessary that he can be one on one position only. Correct. A worker can be linked to multiple positions also. The FT based ones. He can work into position. That can be possible. Yes. That's a dual role FTD, the FTE. You create a position with the 20 hours of effort in a week. Another position has another 20 hours of effort in a week. Then two position is handling with the 0.5 FTE allocated to each position. Very much possible. Haven't seen that. Not in detail, no. But it is possible. Workday allows that. Sometimes it is not that a worker can be assigned only to only one FTE, which means 100% effort. Sometimes a worker can be assigned more than one FTE also. A worker is different, FTE is different. A worker is an individual entity assigned to a particular position, but that FTE is that particular worker is allowed to work only 40 hours in a week, correct? One FTE is not but 40 hours of work. Effort worker assigned to work. Correct, that is one FTE. And now one employee comes and says, I want to work for your company, but I'm back from ML, for example, maternity leave. But I don't want to work 8 hours, I want to work only 4 hours. A worker is again tagged to position. But he's tagged only for 20 hours in a week, which is a 0.5 FTE. A company can have 10,000 workers. I'm just giving you. But the 10,000 workers may not translate into 10,000 FTEs. Sometimes a company can have less FTEs, sometimes can have more FTEs. Makes sense. That's a position. Say FTE can be reduced or increased. Now I have only position that requires only 4 hours. Then one position will be assigned to that person. The remaining 50%, what I am going to do, I'm going to create another position and I'm going to put 50% in that. Then two positions that an employee will handle. My interest is here in the web service like create position. Why do we? Worker ID is really mandatory. I mean, whenever we are online, I'm talking about in tenant. If you create a position, create position is something. It should always be a vacant position where employees being assigned later. Point of time. But whenever we are doing through web services, is it like we can do creating position with worker assigned? Is that any scenario happens like that? No, I don't recall any of those things. This process parameters. We can do it through EIBs. EIB, we can create template and try to generate template and put the data and see whether it's mandatory or not. And even if it's not, it's optional. We can provide an employee ID, valid employee ID, and see whether it's importing or not. That way we can check the web service. What is the use of this in reality? We can do that. Yes, no need to go to here. We also. No, I mean that is the one way of checking web service. Like in case of any error, you are getting in a studio you are trying to import. You might do creating fast, functional users. What they do basically generate the template and use that template to import the data. Create position where also we can feed the table. What are the mandatory fields? Those fields we can take as mandatory and use it in our studio. Whenever we call it, call create position web service to put the key data. That way we can check. We can do it via EAB also. We can try by removing all the tabs and have the minimum. My intention is to learn as much as possible in terms of web service, how to import data if I use any other web service as well, not create position. What the structure is and how to understand what are the mandatory data I need to put and how to import it and call the coding. Do the coding in Studio. That's the intention. If you don't understand the structure of the web service, then you will never be achieving your goal. You need to understand it properly. What is the mandatory fields? How we should put the data to test the web service, then create your web service through components and all those stuff. That's what I'm trying to understand it. Just on the fly, I'm just showing how to understand. This is the past class. You are just trying to get the overview. Overview on how to read a SOAP API page. Just as I said. Yes. Do you know? If some requirement comes like, how do you define? Whether I should use a SOAP-based API or Rust-based API, is there any? Now, if it is going to be inbound, then obviously there is no REST call. You are going to go for SOAP call only. You are trying to say like only outbound we can use REST. REST cannot be used inbound. That's report as a service. Report as a service. You should use it only for outbound. That's when here, this is a create position. Means you are creating a position in Workday. There is no Rust comes into picture. It's only SOAP that is called. You're going to use it. What about gate workers? This is also using SOAP. Gate workers can be done through SOAP as well. Yes, I'm coming next now. This is an inbound. Now the same. You have a request to extract positions, the gate positions. Since we are talking about positions, let's go the same. We have a gate positions here. This is my gate positions. And I can get positions using SOAP also. I can get positions using REST as a service, REST reports, the Workday. If you ask me, the Workday clearly says you go for web service call if it is going to be your studio integration. And why web service? The web services are deployed in a different server altogether. They will never let that web service, the server, to go down because that is their heart. All the data, incoming data, outgoing data, everything happens through SOAP API. They always say go for SOAP if your data is huge. Now and then you have less data. For example, your get positions can get you. If there are like 100k employees, then it will fetch you 100k positions, correct? If it is a position and 100k employees are going to give you 100k positions. And if the number is going to be 100k positions, then we have to go for SOAP AP, a call only. The volume is huge. The volume is huge, then you should go for web service. Very simple. The second one. Now I was asked to extract the locations from Workday get locations. The locations are basically your, let's put a business site, locations, how many places your company is present. Now they are present in 200 places, 2000 areas. Then you are looking at extract 2000 locations, correct? Those 2000 locations, you can get that using get locations or you can use it using your RAS. You can fetch it. Their rate is not going to be much difference because the number is less. And still, as a programmer, you really want to see what is the real difference. You're asked to extract like 10 fields of one location. Let's go for get locations. Let's get. Here it is. This is my get locations. I can use it using this web service also, or I can get it to using my report also. But how do I decide which report as you mentioned? In report, if I ask for location, these are the fields we need to extract from that location. When data source, choose data source. Correct. In report, what do you do generally? You have a location here, and if you know location ID, you can pass the location ID. I don't know the location ID. I'm going to do what I'm going to do. I'm going to use the wizard and I'm going to say get all the location. Next, bring all the location. Data count is going to be 1 to 100. Finish. Now this is my web service to fetch all the locations. The count is 100 locations it is going to look for. You run this, you get an output over here. You got an output. What is the total? Since you got at 570 locations, have come in 6 pages and per page it is 100. And you can go, what is the maximum count? Do you have an idea? To the line is the maximum count. You can fetch all the data in one call also, which means all the 570 will be pulled in one request. But the recommended is 100. Go for multiple iterations, multiple requests. See, now this is taking time. It is going to fetch only 570, but it is taking time. Always go for a smaller numbers. Go for 100 per request, and then you can process one by one. You want to fetch 10 times the data, 6 times you have to call it here. This is one way. And second way, you go to Workday and then create a report, and then let's create custom report, and then say advanced, and then you want location data and you want to get it in a RAS call. Then you have to enable it as web service. And then search for locations. Now we have a location web service, data source. Now here, whatever the requirement that we have, you can add all the fields over here and then extract the data. Then you will get all the 570 locations. If you want to put location name, for example, and say, let us say, of course, the report is web service enabled. There is the I think we need to imagine to fulfill the prompt, and I'll do one thing. That's a part. Just remove the it's enabled. I can do it later. Now you run this. Just looking for a location usage for location. I'm selecting all and just giving it. Now I got the 5 or 70 locations. Your web service is going to get you 5 or 70 locations as well as your report is going to get 570 locations. But for smaller numbers, it is your call. You want web service or report, and still you want to go based on the performance. You can use both the components and see which component is taking more time. You can eradicate that and then go for a lesser time taking one. That's another way of doing it. As you said, always go for a count for a lower number. It's like count is 100. Then what is that in one phase? It will give you 100 locations, correct? And 6 pages are there. Are you going to explicitly design your studio for that web service? Correct, with discounts. If design a studio to fetch one by one 6 calls and fetch all the data, and then store it in a variable. That's where we can see that. How do you use that? I'll get you an example. There we use a component. Page get component. What is that? Can you comment again? Get component. Page get, your voice is breaking. Oh, page get. Using that component, these 6 calls will be made automatically. You don't need to do anything. The parameters. Is it mandatory to do all when do this way, or we can just use the splitter and get it one by one? Not like that, like just asking a question. No, I'll get where the splitter will come into picture. Web service call. This is outbound. No need to call the web service. It's a gate. We will see. We will use one gate and then inbound. This is outbound kind of. This is an outbound thing. Use this web service, pull all the get locations of 570, or you can use a report and get all the locations of 570 locations. Which one to use? It's your experience would say if you are not experienced. If it is less than 5,000 records, go for report. Otherwise, go for web services. Oh, I don't want to take a decision in that mode. Then what I would suggest you add on web service component in the studio, add one RAS call component in the service, and then check how much time it is taking to fetch the data using web service. How much time it is taking data to fetch the report as a call service. If this is going to take like 5 minutes and report. See the override over here. Like in case of report, I don't need to do any extra coding. I just call the report. Convert the Excel. Maybe I need to get the data in CSV format, for I can use XML to CSV and export the data correct. That component using the. Now, in case of using Studio, you are seeing that page, concept came. And I need to do some extra things. Correct? I don't know. I never used it. For Git things, I never used web service. We can have an example for that. I'll teach you how to. Now, this is the example I'm talking about. Now there's another example Git worker, but the Git worker should be. You should get the data using those 4 dates. Your entry dates and then effective dates. If that is your requirement, they are looking for a delta file or change file. Then there is no other option. This web service only, though it is complicated. You have to go for web service only because the delta file you will get it only using web service. No web service means we can use core connector. Core connector and call the core connector from Studio. That is also possible. But if you are going for Studio, then there are 2 ways you can build it. One is use the core connector worker and then build a Studio after that. Then you will get 2 programs correct, which means 2. But now, as a customer, I'm going to tell you no. If you're going to use Studio, then I don't want another integration to be created in Core Connector. Use everything in Studio. Why should they have the burden of creating core connectors? 2 processing time. 2 processes at the same time, is that also possible? You know change data can be created in Studio. Yes, through web services. You get worker, for example. Work. This is get workers. And here you have the updated time, updated through effective data time. This is your delta file. I need to pass the last thing and through launch parameters or something maybe. In Studio, you can do that. In this case, report will be much easier, but in this case you need web service. There is no other option. You have to build your web service only. Why you are saying report? It's not possible. We can do through filtering. Filtering, we can give the yesterday days and current day every time. Every time you can build that day -1, current day -1 and a half to change data. But in that case, the inefficiency is in case of some failure happened on the previous day that will not be able to fetch the data. The data will be lost. For 1 day data, you have the answer. Data will be lost, and using a report, I want to run the integration 2 times in a day. Or I want to run the 2 times in a day. Then there will be duplicate data when I run the report in today's data correct. Whereas when you use core connector, your duplicate data will not be there. That will be taken care of by the template. Last successful effective data. You can, if you are a super duper reporting. Could it be the expert? Maybe. And be the glue date to build and give the filtering criteria. Correct? You can build that. Building is not a problem, one-time effort. But tomorrow you want to maintain it. Tomorrow there is a change that is coming in. You should be able to easily bring the change into the system. Your design should be always simple. At the end, my job is be done how it has to be done. It should be a very simple design. When it is very simple design, and then tomorrow when there is a new change that is coming in, then I can very easily accommodate that change correct. Yes, that's how my design principle is always. Go for a simple design. Even if there is a complicated design that a complicated requirement, and break it into simple ones and then tag it accordingly. Get workers you want to use, then you want to use date, then you can go for this web service. And we talked about locations. Location you want to fetch, you can fetch using a report or using this. As I said, you can apply that in the tenant. You can go. Did I say tenant? Sorry, in your studio you can use both the components and then see which component is taking more time and which component is taking less time. Is it a cold or ask call? Based on that, you can decide which component I'm going to go. That's it another way. Please do like, share and subscribe to our channel. For more information, contact us sales@uptalk.com.